I still remember the sound of my heels echoing across the marble floor of the 54th floor boardroom. It's the kind of sound that makes you hyper-aware of every step you take. Like the whole building is watching. That was the morning my billionaire father-in-law fired me. What he didn't expect was that 22 people would stand up and walk out with me. Asterisk. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you are listening. Your support means everything. My name's Olivia. I'm 32. An operations director at a luxury conglomerate that owns multiple fashion and hospitality brands. Was. The company, Sterling Group, was founded by my father-in-law, Richard Sterling. He's one of those men who fills a room without saying a word. Billionaire, CEO, media darling, and the kind of person whose approval can make or break careers. I didn't marry into the family for money or power. I married his son, Ethan, because I loved him. At least, the man I thought he was. Ethan was quieter than his father. The kind of man who smiled too easily and said he wanted to live outside the shadow of the empire. When we married, I worked in logistics for another luxury brand. Richard himself offered me a position after seeing how efficiently I managed the supply chain crisis for a partner company. He said, "You're sharp, Olivia. We need people like you." I hesitated at first. Mixing family and business rarely ends well. But he was persuasive, and honestly it felt like validation. Like I could stand on my own merit. For 3 years, I climbed steadily. From project manager to regional director. I built teams that ran like clockwork. I had a reputation for fairness. Tough but loyal. People trusted me, and I trusted them. Then came the deal. The deal that changed everything. We were in talks with a major European luxury house to merge operations for a sustainability initiative. Something I'd pushed for months. It was the first time the company had a shot at pivoting toward transparency, and I was leading it. But not everyone liked that idea. Especially Richard's senior executives, mostly men in their 50s who'd been with him since the 90s. They saw me as an interloper. The CEO's daughter-in-law riding privilege into a boardroom seat. They didn't see the 80-hour weeks, the supply negotiations in Shanghai, the audits I led to clean up unethical sourcing. They just saw a Sterling by marriage. I brushed it off. I had Ethan, who always said, "Don't let them get to you. Dad knows what you're capable of." I wanted to believe him. But slowly, I noticed him changing too. More closed off. More defensive about his father. He started attending board meetings uninvited. "Just observing," he said. But he was never just observing. He was aligning himself. Cracks in the family glass. One Friday night, I came home late. My laptop bag still slung over my shoulder. I found Ethan sitting in our penthouse living room, glass of scotch in hand, watching CNBC replay a feature about Sterling Group. They called him the heir apparent. "You didn't tell me you were meeting with the board," I said. "It was just a conversation," he replied, not looking up. "About what?" "Succession planning. Dad's been thinking long-term. And that involves..." "What? Me being sidelined?" "Olivia," he sighed, "you're making it personal again." That was the first time I felt something crack. Not just in our marriage, but in my sense of reality. Because I realized I was in a family where power wasn't shared. It was inherited. 3 weeks later, Richard called for a strategic review meeting at the main headquarters, the luxury boardroom. You know the kind. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A $50,000 marble table. Bottled water imported from the Alps. The kind of setting where billion-dollar decisions get made over espresso. I'd prepared a full proposal for the sustainability project. Data, projections, impact forecasts. My team was buzzing with hope. This was the culmination of a year of work. When I entered the room, something felt off immediately. The atmosphere was heavy. Ethan sat beside his father, not across the table where he usually was. And there were people I didn't recognize, lawyers, advisors, a few board members dialing in on screens. Richard didn't greet me. He just gestured toward the chair at the far end. Let's begin. I started my presentation. Every word, every slide was rehearsed to perfection. But halfway through, Richard interrupted. Olivia, let's pause there. I think we've heard enough. He leaned back, fingers steepled. The same expression he used when closing acquisitions. This company, he said slowly, was built on tradition, discretion, and control. What you're proposing undermines all three. I blinked. Sustainability undermines tradition. Public audit, supplier transparency. You're inviting scrutiny. It's reckless. It's accountability, I countered. Our competitors are doing it already. Consumers demand it. Consumers demand an illusion, he said. And we sell illusions. That's when I knew. This wasn't about strategy. It was about control. Still, I held my ground. With respect, Richard, the market's changing. The board should decide based on... The board, he interrupted, already has. Ethan avoided my eyes. Richard slid a folder across the table. Inside, a termination agreement. My name, my title, my severance, neat, prepared, final, effective immediately, he said. Your position is being dissolved. It's better for the company and the family. For a moment I couldn't move. I could hear my pulse, the faint hum of the AC. Someone's pen tapping. My team, sitting behind me, looked frozen. You're firing me? I asked, voice shaking. We're restructuring, he said. This isn't personal. It's entirely personal, I said. You're firing your daughter-in-law. I'm protecting my company, he replied coldly. And my son's future. That's when I realized what this really was. Ethan's promotion. You're making him coup, aren't you? Silence. Then Richard's faint smile. He's earned it. I laughed, not out of humor but disbelief. You mean he's inherited it? Just like everything else. Ethan finally spoke, quietly. Liv, please don't make this harder than it has to be. That broke me. My husband, the man who'd sworn to build a separate life with me, had sold me out for a title. The walkout, I stood up. My voice steadied. You can fire me, Richard. But you can't erase the work I've done. The systems I built. The people I led. They'll remember what loyalty looks like. Even if you don't. He said nothing. Then I turned to my team. There were 22 of them. Analysts, managers, assistants, coordinators. People who'd stayed late nights, skipped weekends, poured their hearts into projects no one else cared about. I looked at them and said simply, You don't owe me anything. But if you ever believed in what we built, in doing things the right way, don't stay silent. And then I picked up my folder and walked toward the door. The silence that followed was deafening, until a chair scraped the floor, then another, and another. One by one, they stood. We're leaving, said Marcus, my deputy. If she's out, we're out, said Janelle, our supply chain head. You can't just, one of the lawyers began. Watch us, Marcus said. 20-2 people followed me out of that luxury boardroom. The elevator ride down felt surreal. Half of us were shaking. Half were crying. But none of us looked back. The fallout by the time I reached the ground floor, my access badge had already been deactivated. Security met us in the lobby, awkward, apologetic. We stepped out into the crisp city air like exiles. Within hours, Sterling Group's PR team released a sanitized statement. Leadership restructuring to enhance operational efficiency. Translation: we got rid of the idealist. My phone buzzed non-stop. Journalists, former colleagues, even competitors. Some called me reckless. Others called me brave. A few said I'd committed corporate suicide. Maybe they were right. But that night, for the first time in months, I slept without grinding my teeth. The rebuild, it's funny. Losing everything can strip you down to something pure. I had no position, no marriage. Ethan filed for divorce a month later, no plan. But I still had a purpose. My former team, and I started meeting in cafes, talking about what we could build. We didn't have millions, but we had experience and trust. So we launched a consultancy focused on sustainable operations for emerging luxury brands. At first, it was rough. We worked from shared workspaces, pooled savings, ate instant noodles for lunch. But within 6 months, we had our first major client. A Scandinavian design house that wanted to rebuild ethically. Word spread. Within a year, we were profitable. Within 2, we were featured in Forbes under Top 10 Startups, redefining luxury sustainability. And then came the irony of all ironies. The twist: last spring, Sterling Group reached out. They'd lost key contracts after a whistleblower exposed their supplier violations, the same ones I'd tried to fix. Their stock plummeted. Investors panicked. They wanted consulting help from my firm. The email came from Ethan. Olivia, I know things ended badly, but we believe your team's expertise could help us navigate the crisis. Dad is open to discussions. For a solid 10 minutes, I just stared at the screen, laughing. Then I wrote back, Ethan, thank you for thinking of us. Unfortunately, we only work with companies committed to transparency. Best of luck rebuilding what you destroyed. Olivia, we later learned they ended up hiring a second-tier firm. It didn't go well. 6 months later, Richard Sterling retired for health reasons. Ethan's tenure lasted another year before he quietly resigned. Sterling Group still exists, but its shine has faded. Ours hasn't. Sometimes people ask if I regret walking out that day. Losing the security, the title, the marriage. I don't. Because that boardroom wasn't just where I lost a job. It's where I found out who I really was and who truly stood with me. It taught me that loyalty isn't built on bloodlines or paychecks. It's built on integrity, and the courage to walk away when staying means betraying yourself. Now, when I walk into a meeting, it's not in designer heels echoing across marble. It's in sneakers, next to people who believed in something real. And every time I hear someone mention Sterling Group, usually in the past tense, I smile, because that day, when 22 people stood up and walked out with me, I thought I was losing everything. Turns out, I was building something better.